Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling the connectome. Think of it as like the ultimate blueprint of your brain's wiring, a complete map. Our sources are really packed with info on this incredible network. And our mission today, pretty simple, give you a clear understanding of what the connectome is, why it's, well, so important for understanding how we work, and also cover some of the really mind-bending questions scientists are grappling with as they map it.
Exactly. It's a shift.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at specific brain areas in isolation, the connectome lets us see the brain as this dynamic web of communication. It really changes how we think about brain function fundamentally.
Okay, so how do scientists actually go about mapping something so incredibly complex, this network of connections?
Well, for the structural connectome, that's the physical wiring. The actual links, the key technique is diffusion MRI. Imagine tracking how water molecules move in the brain. Water tends to flow more easily along those white matter tracks, the brain's cables, basically.
Yeah.
So you can use that to sort of map their direction and strength.
Okay, tracking water flow for the physical structure.
Right. And then for the functional connectome, which is more about which brain regions are active together, we use things like fMRI and EEG. These measure brain activity patterns, identifying areas that, light up or show synchronized activity. Think of it like seeing which parts of a city have their lights flicker on and off in sync, suggesting they're working together.
Got it. So structural is the actual physical cables, and functional is more like who's talking to whom and when.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So if we have these maps, are they pretty much the same for everyone?
Oh, not at all, no. The connectome shows remarkable individual variability. Really, like fingerprints, no two connectomes are exactly alike. And what's fascinating is that these unique wiring patterns probably contribute quite a bit to our different cognitive abilities, our personality,
Yes.
and maybe even our susceptibility to certain conditions.
Wow. Okay, so that huge variation must be why they launched that massive project, the Human Connectome Project. What were some of the big takeaways from that initiative?
Yeah, the Human Connectome Project, or HCP, has given us just unprecedented detail about how the healthy human brain is organized, structurally and functionally. It's revealed these really intricate connectivity patterns across large groups of people, and that allows researchers to start linking these patterns to behavior, maybe even to our genetics. For instance, they've identified core hubs and these highly connected regions that seem crucial for integrating information across the whole brain.
Integrating information. And all this detailed mapping must have implications for understanding diseases, right? Could we potentially use connectome maps to help with, say, diagnosis?
That's a really promising area, yes. Research from our sources definitely points to specific changes, alterations in connectome patterns in various neurological and psychiatric disorders. For example, studies have seen a pretty consistent weakening of connections in what's called the default mode network in people with early-stage Alzheimer's, which suggests, potential neural signature even before the cognitive decline is obvious.
Wow, a signature before symptoms.
Exactly. So the hope is that connectome mapping could eventually become a powerful tool for earlier diagnosis and maybe more targeted treatments down the line.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting for me. Our brains aren't static blocks of wires, right? They change. How does the connectome evolve as we live our lives, have experiences?
Oh, absolutely. The connectome is incredibly dynamic. It's constantly being reshaped throughout our lives. Things like learning a new language, mastering an instrument, even just the natural process of aging. All these things lead to changes in the strength and efficiency of our brain connections. This adaptability, neuroplasticity it's called, is just fundamental to how we learn and adapt.
Right, plasticity. But mapping something that's constantly changing and incredibly intricate, that must be a huge challenge. What are some of the main technical hurdles they face?
It absolutely is. Mapping the entire human connectome at like a super fine-grained level, that's a monumental task. Current imaging techniques, well, they have limits on how precisely they can resolve individual connections.
Yeah.
You lose some detail. Plus, the sheer volume of data these studies generate is just enormous.
Yeah.
You need really sophisticated computational tools just to analyze it and make sense of it.
Right, the data crunching. And what about our genes? How much do they influence this initial wiring diagram?
Genetics plays a pretty significant role, especially in laying down the initial blueprint. Scientists have identified specific genes and variations in genes that are associated with differences in brain connectivity. But importantly, it's the ongoing interaction between our genes and our environment, our experiences, that really sculpts our individual connectomes over time. So nature provides the initial sketch, you could say, but nurture fills in a lot of the detail.
Nature sketch nurtures details. I like that. So with all this complexity, all this data, How are researchers even beginning to untangle it all?
Yeah, that's where artificial intelligence is becoming invaluable.
Hmm.
Really, AI algorithms are being used more and more to analyze the complex patterns within Connectome data. They can help identify meaningful relationships that might not be obvious just looking at it, and help build models that might predict brain function or even disease risk.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up. The connectome is this incredibly detailed but also constantly changing
Hmm.
map of our brain's connections. It seems crucial for understanding basic brain function. It's unique to each of us. It evolves with experience, and it holds huge promise for understanding and maybe diagnosing diseases. Mapping it is tough, technically challenging, but genetics and especially AI are providing powerful new tools. It really shifts the view, doesn't it? Seeing the brain as one big interconnected system.
Precisely. It's about understanding the brain not just as a collection of separate parts, but as a highly integrated dynamic network.
Okay, so a final thought then for you listening. Considering that your connectome, your brain's wiring, is constantly adapting based on what you learn and experience, how might understanding this ongoing rewiring influence how you think about picking up new knowledge or even just about your own personal growth? It's definitely a fascinating idea to mull over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.